I want to take you on a journey today, and I'm going to be looking over my right shoulder a bit. So don't look at me, just look at the slides or close your eyes or just kind of hang with me for a little bit. What I want to do is take you on a journey through cancer. And I speak to you this morning as a cancer survivor myself. And I want to also convey some of the stories and the insights that I've shared through my patients. I have a naturopathic oncology practice and have had for the last probably 15, 16 years. So I really want to take this time to remember the emotional and the spiritual aspects of cancer, because I think that really that can be the point, if there is a point, of this disease in particular. And for those of you who have heard me speak before, you might be used to me diving into biochemical pathways or molecular signaling, and I love that stuff, but I'm really not going to talk about that at all today. What I want to talk about today is the psycho-spiritual import of cancer and what it can evoke in people who are diagnosed, because it really does bring forth this disease. This diagnosis in particular brings forth the spirit in a very unique way. And it asks the spirit within us to show up in a way that I haven't seen any other disease do. I think other diseases do this in a different way. So I hope that I'll be feeding your spirit in the process of this presentation. There are a lot of people with cancer, 12 million cases diagnosed a year. By 2030, which is only a short, 8 years away, there'll be 20 million new cases diagnosed every year, such that 1 out of every 3 people walking on the planet will have had a diagnosis of cancer. And over half are diagnosed, and over 60% of those diagnosed who die from the disease happen in poor countries. There are a lot of inequities in this disease as well, which is another topic for another day, but I just wanted to make that point known. So with a diagnosis of cancer, it comes out of nowhere a little bit. Life is a bed of roses for a lot of us. Yeah, we have our goals, we work towards those goals, we love our family. We don't necessarily look them in the eyes and tell them that every day, but we love our family, we laugh, rarely to uncontrollable mirth, but we do laugh on a daily basis. We get irritated, we multitask, we panic when we can't find our cell phone, we are tired, we eat too much, we take solace in television and video games, we take pain relievers for our headaches, our body aches, we look in the mirror and we frown at our reflection. And yet, despite all of that, we think life is good. Life is a bed of roses. We're living the dream. And then cancer strikes. How could this be? I felt like I got hit by a sledgehammer. My first reaction was total shock. When I found out that I had cancer, it was surreal. I was scared out of my mind. These are some of the things that my patients have told me. The disease of cancer is terrifying, and it feels to many like the cold claws of death have extended their reach and they're scratching at our skin. The treatments are horrifying in a very unique way, which is, I think, one of the reasons why cancer is such a unique disease. The treatments are often more feared than the disease itself. Now, I just want to say, first of all, at the outset, that while the majority of my time this morning is really going to be on calling out the incredible changes that cancer can evoke, that is not the case for everybody diagnosed with cancer. And there is a deadly, nasty side of this disease. And for many people, cancer is a tremendously destructive, powerful process that literally collapses the structure of their life. And some people don't emerge from cancer wiser, happier, grateful, and instead they're simply painfully scarred. Others seemingly glide through the diagnosis like nothing's changed, and they go right back to life where they left it. But the majority of people diagnosed with cancer have a life-transforming experience that brings them to a profoundly new way of being Simply put, these people learn to be at ease rather than in dis-ease or disease. And the components that make up this deep sense of peace are really best described by the people who are diagnosed themselves. And I'll let you hear some of that. So let me just share a personal story of how I gained a measure of ease from my dis-ease of cancer. When I was diagnosed, I was given a series of chemotherapy treatments, and one of the chemotherapeutic agents I was receiving was Taxol. Now, Taxol is given with a preservative that's very allergenic for some individuals. So as I received my first course of chemotherapy, the stuff kind of flowed into my veins, and pretty soon I started to feel my throat constrict. My chest hurt. I felt like I couldn't get my breath. And my spouse, also a nurse, signaled the nurse in the oncology suite who came over, recognized signs of anaphylaxis, gave me some Benadryl. And within minutes of that happening, I regained my breath and I was soon very sleepy, fell asleep. So I was told before I left, that's terrible. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't worry. It only happens to about a quarter of the people that get this chemotherapy. And the good news is that you won't get it again. It just happens the first time and then your body's fine. Second cycle comes around, Taxol starts going in, and again, I felt my throat constrict, sweat broke out, chest hurt, started losing my breath. And this time, the nurse was there, ready with the Benadryl, just in case. She administered it, fell asleep. Then she said, you know what, I'm definitely in the clear. Like, there's a small minority of people that get this 2 times, but that's it. So you're good. Now you can rest assured you're going to come in. This will be fine. Third cycle. Again, Taxol flows into my veins. My throat closes, my lungs hurt, I lose my breath, I start to panic. The nurse is called, she arrives with the Benadryl, gives me the Benadryl, I gain my breath. Cycle 4. Again, this is happening. Now this time, as I drifted into sleep, I had this very peculiar out-of-body awareness of my breath. And I realized how important my breath was. So as I was trying to remain calm and greedily gulp air, I had this acute sense of air as a gift. And as I drifted into sleep, I thought, is this cancer's first gift to me? The awareness of the sacredness of breath. Breath is derived from Old English to mean spirit, vigor, animation, force. In Latin, breath is spiritus, and in Greek, the derivation is pneuma, which also means spirit. So never since this time have I taken my breath or my spirit for granted. Why me? Removes me from the circumstances of the experience. I become a passive bystander. Why not me is a call to action. Why not me asks me to step into the experience of cancer pulled by a sense of discovery and exploration. Why not me opens us up to the gifts that this disease can offer. Cancer can be called a severe blessing, but a blessing nonetheless. A harsh teacher, but a teacher nonetheless. Why not me immediately makes me part of the community, the human community. So, who are the why not me's out there? I want to take a look, and I'm going to hopefully play some music as I show you some images. And I would like Keith or Devorah to unmute and let me know if you cannot hear the music. I think the way to do this is to put my mic right up to the speaker. So we'll hope this comes through.
Okay, I'm with you.
Where is it? You're warm, you feel cool. You makes me want to go. to be strong. Just when you think you're there, you find yourself back at the start. I try so hard, it's just
Lise, that's that music's skipping pretty badly. It
Yeah.
just it's only triggering the microphone when there's actually sound. So the little drops of silence are making it skip.
You guys hear that? Was that audible?
Just barely. It was
Okay.
skipping. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll stop that. That was a song by Elsie, who was as a survivor herself, and I was just showing you some pictures of survivors, but we'll unfortunately skip that slide. So, the disease of cancer is terrifying, and it feels like this is just an experience which has come down and disrupted everything we know about who we are in the world. And wow, I am totally losing control of my PowerPoint now. Hold on one second, bear with me. Okay, there are people, the members of the human community. These are all individuals that have been faced with a diagnosis of cancer and have had to reckon with what this means to their humanity and to their place in the human community. But they are all survivors. And I think while cancer can be an isolating experience, it's also a way or an offering of connection to the human community. So people who are diagnosed with cancer really undergo subtle to seismic shifts in their outlook, priorities, their values, their sense of purpose. And the experience of cancer shakes all prior thought patterns, every single one, shakes them asunder. But with this disruption to the status quo, the opportunity for new perspective emerges. This brings me to the brain. I had to throw a little science in here because the brain is amazing. There are 100 billion neurons, we think, 1 trillion glial cells, which support the neurons, 500 quadrillion synapses. And with all of this, the brain demonstrates experience-dependent neuroplasticity. So Eric Kandel, who won the Nobel Prize for this work, discovered that the number of connections in a neural bundle can double with repeat stimulation. And if we don't use certain neural connections, they begin to shrink in just 3 weeks, which means that the experiences we have in life literally rewire our brain. And in doing so can transform our values, our emotions, and our beliefs. So what do people diagnosed with cancer learn, and how do they change? I'm going to let them speak for themselves. These insights are from a book called New Beginnings, The Triumphs of 120 Cancer Survivors by Bill Aaron. This is Adam. Adam was diagnosed with fibromyxoid sarcoma at the age of 36. He says, I went through crazy, grandiose ideas that I was going to change my life. I remember thinking that if they cut off my leg, I could become the first one-legged president. Everything was going to be new and different. And then in the end, I realized I just liked my life. The one real change that I made was a new sense of gratitude, an appreciation for life, not just life, but being alive. I never had that before. Now I feel it all the time. Beth was diagnosed with appendiceal cancer at the age of 54. She says, I realize that I have no control over my situation. For a control freak, that's very difficult. As an executive director for the past 27 years, I was always in control. Even my home health care nurse commented that I'm her only patient in control of all the supplies that I need for my care. Cancer has taught me that I no longer have control of my disease or my destiny. And so I enjoy each day and try to see the good in everything. Bronwyn was diagnosed with stage 4 HER2 positive breast cancer at the age of 22. Strange as it may sound, I'm actually happy to have been diagnosed with cancer. Happy is the best word I can find. It feels like I'm finally becoming the person I've always wanted to be. I have conquered my biggest fear. Although I visit fear, I no longer live in it. And that is the greatest joy and freedom I have ever experienced. Cancer has been a catalyst for me to live more fully and to love more deeply. And if one day I do transition this consciousness to another, I would not change a thing. It has been my greatest teacher. For that, I am grateful. I now know that anything is possible, and I have a sense that something truly amazing is about to happen. Bronwyn died 2 years after her diagnosis. The cancer had metastasized throughout her body, and she was in terrible pain. She asked that her life support be disconnected, and instead of a memorial service, she requested a celebration of life for all of her friends on a bluff that she loved, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Her ashes were scattered there at sunset, her favorite time of day. Tiffany, diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma at the age of 22. One day in chemo, I fainted. They told me it might be a tumor in my brain. I freaked out. A beautiful Asian girl came over and sat next to me. It was intimidating because I was bald and bloated, no makeup, feeling like crap, and she was so beautiful. She put her arms around me and comforted me. That day, I knew I had met an angel. And from then on, through every treatment, we were always by each other's side. One morning, I found out that she had died. I wondered why God didn't take me because she was so good. He put her in my life to save my life and then took hers. Mac was diagnosed with testicular cancer at the age of 34 and then with choroidal melanoma 6 years later. The news buckled my knees and knocked the breath out of me. When the doctor told me I would go into surgery and lose a testicle, I reminded him that, hey, we're talking about one of my personally favorite organs. Over the years, we've gotten kind of attached. 6 years later came bout number 2. I became one of 6 in a million people to get malignant melanoma on the back of my eyeball. I told the doctor that I just have no luck with my round organs. During the radiation procedure, which cost me the vision in my eye but saved my life, he told me to come up with another joke about the ordeal. I told him, well, now I'm half blind and half nuts, and got a good laugh. It makes no sense to me not to enjoy life. I want to laugh, to see beauty, and to leave this earth with good references. Cancer and comedy have taught me to never forget that, hey, falling on your face is still moving forward. Dr. Susan Love, author of Dr. Susan Love's Breast Book and founder of the Dr. Susan Love Research Foundation, was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia at the age of 64. She says the only difference between a researcher and a patient is a diagnosis. Having cancer myself has given me a new sense of urgency. We have limited number of days in our lives. You become more aware of that. I often tell my daughter that whether it's changing the world or having a good time, we should not put off what we think we should do. You never know when you will be caught up short with a serious disease. We are all patients eventually. That's why I drink the expensive wine now. This reminds me, by the way, of a quote from Sir Winston Churchill, who said, "One who has a why to live can tolerate almost any how." Okay. This is Manet, diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma at the age of 7. Marie, Manet's mother, says when Manet was little, she loved her long hair. And after we shaved her head, she looked in the mirror and said, "I may look ugly on the outside, but inside Manet is beautiful. So don't cry, Mommy." Edmund, Manet's father, says, "Anything we say is not enough in comparison to the amount of wisdom and courage that she passed on to us. After her 14.5-hour surgery to replace the bone in her arm, she was smiling and laughing. She said, 'Was that it?' When she woke up and she looked at me, she said, 'Dad, I never nagged at anyone. I smiled the whole time.' I hugged her and cried." When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I felt like I had been given this special magic button. I imagined I had this button over my chest and it was glowing, and this glow caused everybody who came near me to immediately become their best self and fall under this spell. It was as if when people came into my presence, all they wanted to do was to be in love with me, with life. So love poured, gushed, sparkled, and shone, and I bathed in it luxuriously throughout my ordeal. So the blossoming of these core values is really the greatest potential that cancer can provide. This is the essence of the transformative aspect of cancer. I think perhaps the ultimate gift of cancer is the gift of living inside the moment and finding there only love. People living in this way tend to say and do things that prioritize connectedness, generosity, kindness, compassion, integrity. It really is if there's neither time nor interest in anything else. And once inside this clarified awareness, life becomes a lot more beautiful, meaningful, and joyful. So the time really is now. What a thrill to imagine the entirety of doctors, of patients, of caregivers living in this now moment. What a tremendous force of hope and good that we become in this shared moment. My father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and despite outliving his prognosis and in astoundingly good health for most of that time, he did ultimately die from his disease. Because he was given such a poor prognosis when he was initially diagnosed, in fact, he was told he had 3 months left, perhaps, the awareness of his pending death took a central place in his psyche. About 3 weeks after his diagnosis, he asked all of his adult children to come to him in the living room for a family meeting, of which we had had many throughout our lives. And he proceeded to tell us that he understood that he was actively dying, but that he intended to prolong the inevitable as long as he could. Furthermore, he said, I want to give you the most important gift that I think I can give you. I am going to die with my eyes wide open. I'm going to include you in my learnings. I hope to soften your own fears as we take this journey together. And in fact, for the next 17 months, he did just that. He called every person he had ever had a significant friendship or relationship with, and he told them that he wanted to see them. He packed up his car and between treatments traveled and flew across the country visiting these people. And with every one of them, he expressed how much they meant to him and why they were uniquely important in this world. Then he asked them if there were any unhealed wounds or unfinished business between them. He listened and he offered his heart to each person. And in this fully engaged way, he soothed many hearts. And I know this because he did the same thing with each of his children. He begged us to dredge up any past hurt or confusion, to voice them so that he could listen and offer the soothing intensity of his love to melt them away. He did this relentlessly and honestly. This was indeed one of his most precious gifts and was one of the ways in which he died with his eyes wide open. I'm going to read a Mary Oliver poem. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. So I have another video to play, which I'm going to skip, unfortunately, because we can't hear it. So with that, I want to finish and just say that I'll let this visually be in the background, but I just want to say that like this flower is unfolding and nature is healing, there is so much that we each are and have to offer. And I think sometimes cancer can become a tremendously important way to awaken to our potential and to, in fact, emerge into a sense of deep wellness, which I equate in my own life to a sense of gratitude for my breath, gratitude for my family, gratitude for my friends, and ultimately gratitude for the privilege of being able to have a life on this planet. So with that, I thank you very much, and I will stop sharing screen. And Devora, if I'm not sure what happens at this point, but
Yeah.
happy to
Well,
answer questions or.
yeah, we're here. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much, Lise, for what you opened in terms of a dialogue, the opportunity to dialogue, whether it's this morning or as each of us move into our day.